Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's topic is spirituality. The tradition, or not the traditional, but what is the new way of spirituality? What does that mean? What does that mean to you, Susan?
Oh, for me, it's evolved, I'd say, over time. For me, I would say that spirituality is connected to nature, like everything around me. It's about finding some sort of balance. Like we know the world is crazy around us now, right? Everything is very in flux, and I find that turning to spirituality, whether you're consciously turning to it or you're doing it without even realizing it sometimes, um, really helps to calm. Like if there's stressful things going on in my life, it's like, okay, I can kind of turn to a few things to help balance it out, right? We're not, you're not looking for this perfection or anything, but it's just finding an inner calmness that I find is so helpful just in my daily life and for my mental health, right?
Right. I agree with you. And but I think so for me personally, like when I was researching this, spirituality. So for me, spirituality um is is still has some sort of higher power about it.
Yeah.
It's has nothing to do with organized religion, but there's still
No.
some sort of higher power. And what I found so interesting when I was researching is because I just thought that's when you said spirituality, that's what it was. But actually, in today's world, more and more people are moving towards spirituality, but it
Yeah.
has no religious component to it at all.
Oh.
And it's
Well, it's not
really,
organized,
it's
right?
not organized. But some of the things I was reading is just, um, just looking inward. It's that idea, like there's a lot of mental health in it.
Oh,
It's being out in
yeah.
nature. My husband actually says that. He says, being out in nature is his,
It's so healing.
yeah.
It's healing, it's calming, and not to cut you off, but in sort of in our work is very similar in certain ways, right? Um, but I mean, a lot of countries now, I know that Japan doctors are actually prescribing for people to go out and walk in nature
That's
because we've become so detached from nature, the way that we live. We're in cities, we're in concrete. A lot of us sometimes don't see a lot of greenery. There's always noise around us. People are busy, they're hustling. When you go out into nature, it's always a lot calmer. It can be busy, don't get me wrong, like, you can hear birds but it's not the same busy that you and I are thrown in every day, right? Whether we like it or not. And for me, that's the aspect of spirituality, right? It's being able to literally take a breather from all that craziness and just kind of recoup and regroup and go, okay, we can, if it's a busy day, it's like, okay, we got this. If I have that pocket in the morning, I'm like, okay, I know I can get through whatever the day's gonna throw at me, whether it goes in the direction I'd like or not, right?
correct. And I think, because we need to bring in
Mm,
organized religion to this
we
conversation.
do.
I don't
Just
think
a
we
little bit.
have this without it. And I know both of us have come from a very religious background. My individual family, my nuclear family was not really that religious, but I have a very large extended family, and I come from an extremely religious town. And so my experience in organized religion is not good because it divided my family. And luckily, eventually, everything came together because the religious people finally started accepting the non-religious or not as religious people, which that's a whole nother topic.
That could be a whole other topic one day.
Shouldn't we just automatically accept others? Anyway, no,
You wonder.
we'll shove that sucker aside. So it's always been a very difficult
Yeah.
conversation. And so as I hit, probably my 20s, it was okay, that doesn't work for me, but
Yeah.
neither does the other end of the spectrum work for me. Where am I in it? And finding that piece of finding my own spirituality and figuring out what that means to me. And
Well, I
I
think
think that is
evolved.
what's
Yeah.
so important is what does that mean for you. And one thing that I thought was so interesting is that more and more people are moving towards spirituality in whatever way, shape, or form that works for them. But
Yeah.
you know what they're moving away from external authority and wanting to have internal awareness. They're moving away from, inherited beliefs and figuring out their own beliefs, again, what works for them. And instead of having an obligation, they're moving towards choice. All of
Mm.
those things, it's like, wow, I just
Yeah,
love that so much. It's so healthy for us.
I think so. And it
So
really
it works
speaks,
for us.
yeah, and it really speaks to, if you think about a lot of native, indigenous people, whatever continent you go on, the spirituality in their lives, it was part of them, it was part of their life. Um, and I, like you, had a very, my nuclear family was very religious, and similar to you, it wasn't a divide, it was not a very pleasant experience. And sort of, I think we've had similar paths. I kind of looked to try and figure something out, because it's not that I wanted to reject it. It was just like I could see the damage that it did, and I really didn't like it.
Mhm.
And through the years, I've just you work through different things, right? You figure out things for yourself. And I think that's the difference. And I think that's what, if you choose to, it can be so helpful and it can be so supportive. Um, Especially as we said at the beginning, we are living in times of a lot of uncertainty. And I think sometimes if you have the skills and you have the awareness to be able to look in and find some calmness there, however you're doing it, right? A lot of people, for some people it's journaling, for some people it's meditation, it's mindfulness, it's again,
Yoga.
it can be music, it could be anything.
It's a
And
complete playbook for mental health,
right,
right? How
this
to
is it.
improve your mental health and how to
Exactly.
figure yourself out
Yeah.
and find.
You will be in a much better position then to deal with those situations. Is it a magic pill? No, but you will deal with them better than if you didn't have that. Whichever one you choose. As I said, there's an array. It could be literature, it could be whatever allows you that calmness, that contentedness. And there are still communities around it, but like we said, there's no specific structure, there's no obligations.
Yeah.
And I think that's what's so healthy.
Really healthy. I read that younger people are kind of leading the way towards spirituality because, just being told what you're supposed to believe is just not working.
And think, right? This is what you should
Today's a
think.
different world. And I think we have to acknowledge that,
Yeah.
right? I know people who can quote scripture and verse, and it's like, but that's not relevant today.
No, our world. Oh my
Let's
gosh,
think
so
about this.
different.
So younger people are kind of leading the way of, I need to think for myself. I need to figure out what works for me. And I have to do what makes me feel good and feel
Yeah.
peaceful about it,
It doesn't
whatever
hurt,
that looks like.
right? That's the one thing as well. Spirituality does not harm other people, right? It's work that you're doing for yourself and de facto will benefit the people around you, right? Because let's face it, if you're feeling more content, calmer, just generally more at ease, then anybody that's near and around you will indirectly benefit from that, right? It's like a ripple effect.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
I
I
do
was also
think,
really curious too, when I was researching, is as we get older, do more and more people become religious? And because I saw that with my grandparents, honestly, I had no idea they were religious. And then probably, I don't know, the last 20 years of their lives, all of a sudden it's like I found out they were going to church every week. And I'm
um,
thinking, well, this is the other side of my family. Like we're the most non-religious people I know. Like, what do you mean
were they
going to
looking more for a
church?
sense of community,
Well, there
right?
is a sense of community, but I also read, which was really interesting, is that it may not necessarily be that people are, as we get closer to the end of life, that we're looking for something. Um,
Mhm.
in more to the fact that those people who are going back to the church often started out in the church. And so it's, now they're becoming, what's
Quite
bigger than
spiritual.
me. What was that?
Like, I hope I don't go back. I'm very happy here. Thank you very
I'm
much.
not, I know that for sure I am not going back. But I do see that sense of,
Yeah. And I think if you
who
didn't
am
have a
I?
bad
What
experience, sorry, if you didn't have a bad experience, I can understand and I completely get it, right? People for who it wasn't a bad experience. I can understand why, like I do. There's a big sense of community. You support each other, like
that's
that
very
social
nice, I
aspect
have to say. That's really nice.
is huge, right? And I completely understand that. So it's not that I'm against organized religion. I just feel that personally for myself, it brings me nothing.
I
Right?
completely agree. For me as well.
Spirituality does much more for me than that ever did. Again, so like disclaimer, take it how you'd like it. If it works for other people, and then therefore I could understand if somebody had it and sort of let it go for a while because of family life, and then, as you say, towards the older years, there's a certain comfort to it. I completely get that. Like that would make total sense to
Yeah.
me.
Yeah, I completely agree. I mean, when we're struggling, and I think hitting that like community is so huge. And that
Mm,
idea of kind of maybe letting go and letting something bigger, if that's what you believe in, help you, support you in that time. I'm all for that.
yeah,
Whatever works for you.
yeah.
Um, it doesn't work for me because I need to figure out what works for me and my own beliefs and
In
my
our own
own.
way.
Yes, and in our own things. But I just think it's just so interesting. And I think so the final message here would be whatever works for you is the right thing.
And you know it, right? You know when something's working for you because again, I think as we said at the beginning, the spirituality really is about that sense of connection with yourself, having that sense of calmness, of contentedness, even if things are going haywire around you, you're like, okay, if I look in, I can get that, that's really however you're going to get it, that's what it's about, really.
Because, this just came to me. When you're told to do something a certain way that goes against what your really internal beliefs are or what works for you, that is very, very stressful. So I'm a huge proponent of thinking for yourself and
Mm.
deciding what works for you. And then the kind of my closing comment on that would be acceptance, because there's not
Yes.
a lot of acceptance of whoever
Other
you
people.
are.
Yeah.
And what you said earlier, as long as you're not hurting anybody, go big, but
Yeah.
acceptance.
Figure
Um,
it out. Think for yourself and figure out what works for you. And again, as always, we'd love to hear people's thoughts on this. And this really is just or are just our thoughts and feelings about this. But I think we're also just
just
curious.
our thoughts, people.
But we were just curious to see, because everybody has a different journey. But I do think that spirituality now is something that we can talk about more. And for people to understand it isn't all woohoo hippies and, peace and love. There's a lot more to it than that.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that was
And
my
that's
little
a really
thought.
good final note that you put there, Susan, because I think a lot of people, when they hear spirituality, they do think of the
Magic
woo-
mushrooms.
the hippies and back in the day.
Yeah.
Maybe they were onto something, but anyway,
Yeah.
but there is more to it. And so anyway, we'd love to hear your comments, what your thoughts are on that. We know this is a really big topic. But these are our thoughts and just whatever works for you, whatever makes you feel best and empowered,
Mm,
and all the power to you.
exactly. I like that. All the power to you.
All the power to you. All right. Take care, everybody. We'll see you next time.